You're listening to the Everything Jewish 10 Minutes at a Time podcast, where you'll learn about every Jewish topic imaginable in about 10 minutes. Before we get started, I have to apologize in advance for my Hebrew pronunciation. My voice isn't a real human voice. It's an artificial intelligence voice. And sometimes Hebrew words come out sounding like I'm trying to play Wordle with extra vowels. So if you hear something that sounds a little off, just know it's not a new dialect. It's me glitching. With that out of the way, today's topic is matzah. Yes, that flat, crunchy, crumb-producing, teeth-challenging cracker that takes center stage at Passover. It's both a deeply symbolic food and the cause of many crumbs in couch cushions worldwide. Let's dive in and see why this humble bread has such a big role in Jewish tradition, how it's made, and all the fascinating variations that keep it from being just another box of bland crackers. So, what exactly is matzah? At its simplest, matzah is unleavened bread. That means it's bread made without letting the dough rise. Jewish tradition tells us this goes all the way back to the Exodus story, when the Israelites had to leave Egypt in such a hurry that they didn't have time to wait for their bread to rise. Imagine being told to grab your stuff and leave immediately. No time for DoorDash, no time for sourdough starters. Just grab what you can and run. That's essentially what happened. Matzah then becomes the edible symbol of both urgency and freedom, a reminder of how quickly the Israelites had to move and how sometimes the simplest foods carry the biggest stories. Now, you might be thinking, okay, unleavened bread, got it. But what does that really mean in practice? Good question. According to Jewish law, matzah must be made very quickly, within 18 minutes from the moment water touches flour. Why 18? That's the amount of time it takes for natural fermentation to kick in. If you go past that, the dough might start to rise and boom, it's bread with yeast. And once yeast is involved, it's chametz, the stuff strictly avoided during Passover. That's why traditional matzah bakeries look more like factory assembly lines, with people rolling, cutting, and baking dough at lightning speed. It's not just about efficiency. It's about staying within that sacred 18-minute window. Imagine a cooking show where the timer isn't just for drama, it's for divine compliance. But matzah isn't just one generic flatbread. It can only be made from one of 5 grains listed in Jewish law: wheat, barley, spelt, rye, or oats. These are known as the 5 species of grain and are the only ones that can become chametz. So when you hear about gluten-free oat matzah, that's not a hipster invention. It's actually a halachic Jewish law workaround to make sure people with celiac disease or gluten intolerance can still fulfill the commandment of eating matzah at the Seder. Each grain gives a slightly different texture or flavor, though let's be real, the word flavor and matzah don't often appear in the same sentence. Still, there's something powerful about knowing the options come straight from an ancient legal tradition, not just a modern bakery experiment. Of course, not all matzah is created equal. You've got the familiar square, machine-made matzah that most people pick up at the supermarket in cardboard boxes the size of a small suitcase. These are efficient, mass-produced, and stacked neatly at the Seder table. But then there's the artisanal version, known as shmurah matzah. Shmurah means guarded, and it refers to wheat that has been carefully supervised from the moment it's harvested to ensure it never comes into contact with water until it's ready to be baked. The idea is that extra care and supervision create a higher level of holiness, making it the preferred choice for the Seder night. Shmurah matzah usually comes round, handmade, and looking more like a giant cracker someone accidentally left on the grill a few seconds too long. Shmurah matzah is often seen as the gold standard, but it's also pricier. A box of shmurah matzah can cost as much as a fancy dinner out, while machine-made boxes are closer to the price of your average snack food. People debate which one counts more, but halachically, both fulfill the mitzvah of eating matzah on Passover. The preference for shmurah matzah on the Seder night comes from its stricter level of supervision, almost like buying organic, fair trade, locally sourced produce at a fancy grocery store. Some communities see it as essential, while others are content with the square supermarket variety. Either way, both are carrying forward the ancient tradition of bread that didn't rise because liberation couldn't wait for yeast. And let's not forget matzah's culinary versatility. Sure, by itself, it can feel like eating cardboard. But once Passover kicks in, matzah becomes the star ingredient in countless creative recipes. Enter matzah brai, basically the Jewish version of French toast, where you soak matzah in eggs and fry it up. Then there's matzah pizza, a favorite for kids and anyone desperate for carbs with toppings. Crushed matzah turns into matzah meal, which becomes the Passover substitute for breadcrumbs, holding together matzah balls in soup or coating schnitzel. In fact, matzah meal is such a staple that some people keep it around all year for recipes, not just during Passover. It's like the Swiss Army knife of kosher cooking: adaptable, functional, and sometimes surprisingly tasty. Interestingly, the texture of matzah varies depending on where you are. Sephardic communities often make softer, more tortilla-like matzah, which to Ashkenazi Jews feels almost scandalous because they're used to the crunchy, break-your-teeth version. But both are halakhically valid. The difference reflects broader Jewish diversity, like how one family calls it soda and another says pop. The symbolism remains the same, even if the chewing experience doesn't. This flexibility shows how Jewish communities around the world adapted the laws to local traditions and tastes while keeping the core requirements intact. If you've only ever tried boxed matzah from the grocery store, tasting Sephardic matzah can feel like discovering a hidden menu item at your favorite restaurant. At the heart of all this, matzah is more than just food. It's a spiritual symbol. Eating it during Passover is a mitzvah, a commandment, meant to remind Jews of both suffering and freedom. The Talmud even calls it lechem oni, the bread of affliction, but also the bread of freedom. It's a paradox baked right into the cracker. On one hand, it's poor man's bread, eaten in haste and without luxury. On the other, it's the bread of liberation, eaten as a free people. That duality makes matzah one of the most powerful symbols in Jewish tradition. Every crunch is not just a bite of dry cracker, but a bite of history, memory, and identity passed down for thousands of years. So next time you're crunching away on matzah and wondering why anyone would voluntarily eat something that tastes like cardboard dusted with nostalgia, remember the bigger story. Matzah carries thousands of years of meaning in every bite. It's the edible souvenir of the Exodus, the food that says freedom was so urgent. Even bread didn't get a proofing break. It connects Jews across continents and centuries, from handmade shmurah rounds to supermarket squares. And yes, it inspires both culinary creativity and a lot of jokes about constipation. That's part of its charm. Thanks for listening to this episode of Everything Jewish, 10 minutes at a time. If you enjoyed it, please forward it to a friend who might like it, or leave a positive review so more people can find this podcast. Until next time, keep crunching on history.